Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention Podcast. Man, I feel great today. This is going to be a lot of fun. Today, I have Kunal Mordekar with us, who is the COO and head of YOOZOO Games in India. Dude, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. I don't get to talk to as many folks over in the Indian game industry as I'd like to, but like, you guys are doing amazing stuff, and like there's so much talent over there. So whenever I do get the chance, it's great. Just got to work out the time zones, but I've been excited for this one for a while. But before we dive into things, like I always like to ask, how did you get into games? Like, how did you end up where you are? What's your story?
Okay. That's a good question, and I think it goes back when I was a gamer. Obviously, I think most of us start off being gamers
Oh
first.
yeah.
I grew up going to my neighbor's place, sort of bribing him with my video game CDs and or cassettes, and getting playtime on his PC because my parents never gave me one. Yeah, and I just keep doing that while I grew. Then I was just addicted to it. I would go to a lot of cafes, keep playing, and then accidentally ended up in computer science for
Hmm.
my graduation. Uh, Surprisingly, at that time, my parents somehow read about the gaming industry and stuff, and there was this what do you say, a seminar kind of a thing in the city where I live, and he sort of enrolled me. I went there, took up a diploma course in game design at that time. Uh, did that, and while I was there, I was doing the course. I had this visiting faculty by the name Rohit Gupta, who was actually the founder of a gaming company called Rollicle Games back then. It was just a startup, but he was a visiting faculty. He kind of liked my projects and sort of offered me an internship, and that's how I got in. And because it was a startup, you have to get your hands dirty in everywhere you can. Because of my computer science background, he asked me to primarily be a programmer and support game design as well. And that's how I got into the industry, really. And from there onwards, being one of the first 5 employees of the company, we got funding, started expanding. Then we needed producers, we needed more artists, started hiring, just growing the team from there, and it all just fell into place one after the other. That was pretty much first 5 years of my career. And then Nazara, I was at Nazara Games in Mumbai, specifically a game designer there.
And
Following that, joined YOOZOO India. In fact, I was the second employee in YOOZOO India. I did not join YOOZOO India at a management position. I joined it as a producer. Um,
mm,
while I did, right from making, job descriptions and tests and signing up uh, recruiters and stuff for us, I did almost everything or supported
mm.
the CEO then in doing setting up the entire thing here, and eventually ended up running the place. So
That's
yeah, I
a
mean,
that's amazing. Yeah, you started from all the way up. That's
yeah.
fantastic. Um, wow. Um, so you talk about something that is not really, I don't know. I feel like folks don't go over this too much in the industry. And I think it might be an interesting topic to delve into first, before I get to my other questions. Um,
Sure.
and that's really, I feel like just about everyone that I've talked to in the gaming industry, everyone has this like secret dream of one day running their own studio and like having the full creative artistry to create whatever they want. Um, but as we both know, starting a studio and scaling it up and recruiting, it's not an easy feat. um, but I specifically want to talk about, you took it from 2 people to I don't know how many people you are right now, but what was your process for creating tests? Like, did you learn anything? Like, did you create a test that was ever way too hard or way too easy? Or yeah, well, what's your approach to that? Maybe I don't know. You got different roles, so maybe we start with like your programmers. How did you find and
Uh,
recruit them, vet them?
so thankfully, I did start off in the industry as a programmer, right? So I kind of knew the technologies from a programmer's perspective at that time, especially Unity engine. That is something that's very widely and commonly used in the industry.
Yep.
I had a lot of experience working on iOS. But the time I actually worked on iOS, I'm talking about um, C, to C back then.
Yep.
Before the Swift and everything came into picture. I'm talking about that time. And so this experience basically sort of helped me with what are my expectations from a programmer as such when I'm hiring one. Uh, I obviously went online and looked at a lot of other job descriptions as well that a lot of companies out there have on their websites. It's free information, freely available information. You can always go on LinkedIn. I'm following pages like Ubisoft, Sumo Digital, EA. I'm following everyone, right?
Yep.
So they obviously happen to post their job descriptions up there, and you kind of get a picture of what it is that you can look for, what it is that you should be looking for, and then obviously uh, you have your own strategy or your own plan, which I had from my CEO then. So I kind of figured what technology we need, what is the experience we need, sort of put that together and come up with your own job description. But it's very important that you are very honest about your uh, requirements in your role. So it's not just about looking someone up and just copy pasting it, but it's like you can get clues from there, but shouldn't be used as is. You need to put in your requirements very clearly. Uh, the clearer you are while hiring, I think the longer they stick around because they know exactly what they are getting into. Uh, and obviously, you have some bad hires. You also have a lot of many good hires that come out of it. And over the process, you tweak your job descriptions and your requirements as you go. And once you have the seniors in place, uh, they can take it from there. So,
Gotcha. So it's about hiring the right people that then can go on and kind of build their team, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah.
Did you ever, or have you ever, and I haven't honestly, but I just had an
Mm-hmm.
idea for it. Um, have you ever like applied to somewhere just to like go through their process to see like what sort of tests do they have to do? What's their interview process like, just to see like what can you learn and kind of take back?
Actually, not. To be honest, I've never done that. But I'm very curious when someone else gets a job, uh, or when someone else, someone on my team is moving out, and they we just have a one-on-one, and I kind of try and ask, do you mind if you share the test with me, or do you mind if you could discuss how your interview went? Just use their experiences to build on, but never really did that myself. But now that you say it, I think it's actually not a very bad idea.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes they just come to me, but I'll have to maybe try it myself a little bit too.
yeah, yeah. But I hope we don't waste too much time for the recruiter on the other side, because we also need to understand that the company
That's
is also
true.
investing their time, right?
This is true. Yes, I didn't put on my company hat. It's always hard to balance.
It is. It is.
So thinking about it from that perspective, honestly, this is something that I struggle with. Like, there's a lot of developers out there, but I imagine you've experienced. I know that I have. There are very mediocre developers like me, and then every tier up. It's not like, okay, you add 2 times and you get something. It's like 10 or 100 toms is like a step up, and then there's like 1,000 toms going a step above that, each tier. So, but I always kind of balance it, or I always struggle with, when do you give them like a programming test to like vet that? Because it is so frustrating when you invest all this time like interviewing someone and they seem perfect and they say all the right things and they sound great, and then they just can't code at all. um, so it's like, okay, well, do we give them a test to try to go through that? But then, are the very best programmers going to be like, well, I want to talk to someone first, and I want you to sell me on the company or whatnot? Like, have you found like a good balance or an approach of, when do you interview, when do you test, to both balance like the candidate time, because you don't want to make them all take tests and stuff beforehand, but you also got to balance like the company time and how long it takes to interview them?
Uh, to be very honest with you here, I usually try and keep the test as upfront as possible before I begin the rest of the interviewing process, so to speak. Um, I would ideally like to put it this way that um, I, if I have now, is it safe to assume that I have a team to help me hire here?
Sure.
Yeah. So then generally what I would like to do is, let's say if I'm hiring a developer, I'll probably get one of my developers to take out some time, have a quick chat with this candidate, uh, get a vibe check with the person, um, come back, just give me a brief of how things go there. And if it sounds good, then you can always have your HR team sort of get back to them and check if they are open to a test around that time. Because what I ideally want to do is uh, use the initial vibe check conversation to sort of give a brief about my company to the candidate as well, get an idea of the candidate's requirements, or what their aspirations are. More than requirements, I would say aspirations. Like it's very important you match those, and the requirements of the company and the aspirations of the candidate should match, and that's when you're like the perfect fit. If that is not really, you know, a perfect fit or a good fit, then I make sure that in the second round, when my HR is sort of just having a report with the candidate, they mention it that this is a little different. And do you still want to explore the opportunity? And then this, if the candidate at that point is still on board, I think that's when I would want to roll out the test ideally,
Mm-hmm.
before I actually uh, get the get the senior management involved in the entire process. But again, it would differ mostly on which position you're hiring at. Like if you already have your tech lead in position or your CTO in position in place, then probably he's going to take care of all of this with the HR team, and you don't really need to get into it. But if you are hiring CTO, then sometimes the process is entirely different. You just yourself going around LinkedIn, looking for someone, talking to everyone, and the test at that time probably comes at a very later stage, or probably even sometimes doesn't even come into picture, because at that point you're at someone's resume and their past work experience is enough for you to sort of say that, okay, this guy's done quite a bit and he's expected to know
Yeah.
stuff.
Interesting. Of the tests that you've done and found most successful, like I guess in the realm of programmers, like, is it doing like a hacker rank test with algorithms? Is it like, hey, build this project in Unity, there's really no like time frame, it's XYZ? Like, there's a lot of different varieties where some people in the development realm are of the mindset that tests don't really do a good job of testing programmers, because sometimes that stress just freaks people out and they can't actually code in there, and you might pass on some really good people. So I'm just generally curious, like, what kind of tests have you found to be most successful just within the game programmer realm?
Uh, so my favorite tests are the ones that are actually, nitpicking the candidate's brain at his ability to logically think, especially when it comes to programmer, right? A logical approach to execution of whatever their task is very important. A problem solving attitude is very important. So after a certain point, you're not really looking at what kind of technical knowledge, or what kind of uh, how good does he understand the technology itself, because by that time he's worked long enough to have a good idea of those things. But at this time you just want to kind of think about things like just ask a quick question like, hey, we are making a chess game, you know the rules. How are you going to go about making that? You don't have to do it. Just tell me how you're going to do it, or just tell me what thought process you going through. And then if he comes up with the algorithm right there, you can maybe then say, okay, that's good. Are there any scope? Is there any scope for optimization? Because obviously you want to save your processor from doing too many calculations for a simpler task. And you just kind of keep at it until you can see how far that can go, can come up with ideas, or even just he's trying to solve it. Like, he's troubleshooting it. Even if you can see that,
Yep.
and you realize that, okay, he's got a really great approach at this. Uh, because nowadays the thing is, the internet has most of the answers on it. Like, uh, and even if you have someone who is just good at finding solutions and solving problems, uh, they will get you there.
That's a really interesting approach. I like that a lot, actually. What about if we think about like artists? Is there a slightly different approach to how you would, test and vet artists that you're looking for?
Uh, for artists, I usually just prefer an actual test of whatever they're going to be. Like, if they're going to be character artists, then yes, this is the character I want you to sort of model or texture or animate. That's pretty straightforward there. Or if it's a concept artist, then you sort of uh, get your designer to have a design document or something for a character that you can just share with the concept artist and see what the concept artist throws back at you. Sometimes they just surprise you. I mean, they come up with a concept that's much better, and like you never imagined it that way, but it looks really awesome. And it's like, okay, uh, that's mind blowing. Uh, as for the animations and stuff like that, it's quite straightforward from what kind of work they have just submitted in the test. I obviously love to see portfolios before I sort of shell out the test. So if the artist is keeping their portfolios updated, that's right.
That's great.
That's actually something I've seen a lot, uh, especially while I was hiring here in India, that I had a problem with, is that most artists, or a lot of artists I came across, had portfolios that weren't really updated. So like, they're really good now, but the kind of work that I see on their art station and stuff like
Yeah.
that is just beginner stuff, and I'm like, okay, something's wrong.
Excuse me. Do you ever find that some artists, like, I know I've heard of this before, of like, well, I've done all this work for so and so, but I can't show it to you because of an NDA or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. One last thing, related to hiring, and then I'll get off the topic, but I think it's so important. You mentioned you want to be as clear as possible for hiring. And likely if you get that right, they're going to stick around for longer. You launched this new studio though. How were you able to be clear in your hiring for a new studio, or in this case, like a new startup, when things might change so much? Like, you might have a theory of like, hey, this is the first game we're working on, but your metrics might be crap, and you kill that game 4 or 6 months in and you're doing something completely different. So how do you keep that clearness? Is it about having like a higher level vision, or?
So it's when let's stick to programmers in this case, right? Now, when you're making a game, there are a lot many things to it. Like, for example, there can be gameplay programming. There can be some programmers who are working on the UI. of the game, or just building pipelines, or your build pipelines, or your resource pipeline. So uh, or especially when you're a startup which is starting off, you have one developer who's probably doing everything for you.
Yeah.
you know uh, so I think the clarity that I was specifically mentioning is this, that sometimes your developers will have reached a point where they are like, okay, I love gameplay programming. I want to work on that. I don't really like to sit and figure out the UI and make sure that it's fitting on all the screen sizes, all my
Yeah, that's me.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm not interested in that. I want to focus on the gameplay. So this is what I was talking about. Like, if you are big enough studio where you can have like dedicated people working
Hmm.
on some dedicated projects, yes, you make it very clear that, hey, you're a gameplay programmer and this is what is expected of you. If you're starting off, then you can say you're gonna get everything,
Yep.
and that's how it's gonna be. You can sort of give them an idea in terms of your pipeline, uh, but obviously, like you said, in the gaming business, um, especially with the data, if it's not supporting your game, you're going to um, just pull the plug on that project and move on to the next one. So
Yep.
guaranteeing that is definitely, I would say, not something that you can do unless you're working on a very big project, which for sure is, for example, if you're working on the next FIFA, then you kind of know that the game's coming out,
Yeah.
right? So,
That's really good to think about. Cool. Um, okay. I wanted to talk a little bit, like, you have a lot of experience as a producer, and I've heard, I don't know, so many different definitions of like what a producer is and what they're supposed to do. So I'm curious, like, when you hear that someone is a producer, like, what does that mean to you?
okay. Uh, I very much relate to what you said, when a lot of different definitions of producer. But to me, uh, if you are a senior level producer, I'm looking at someone who is able to take my vision for the game, or the basic idea or basic premise of what kind of a game am I wanting to develop, and come back with a team size, with a team plan, a possible budget plan to go around it, that says, okay, Kunal, we're going to need a team of 10 people or 15 people to execute this project. Uh, this is the kind of budget allocations that I'm doing for it, and with this budget allocations, this is the time that I'm going to give for it. So uh, there was a talk that I had attended once, and what was said in the talk was that there are three things you should always remember when you're making a game: is there's quality, there's budget, and there's time. And you can always control just two of those factors. For example, if I see my budget is less and I want extremely good quality project, then the time is not in your hands. It's going to take a lot more time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you say that, okay, my budget is really good and I want extremely good quality, then obviously your time can come down. Or if you want the lesser time and you want a lesser budget, then you're going to compromise on quality naturally.
Mm.
So when I say producer, I am talking about someone who is considering these things, who is coordinating with the management or the person in charge of making decisions on terms of what kind of project you're going to be working on, and sort of come up with the best possible plan, team size, in terms of, okay, your budget is X, okay, then this X budget can get you a team size of Y, and it's going to take whatever time it's going to take to make it. And then making sure that that is followed throughout the process. And it's obviously, there are times when you don't really get it, but that's something everybody knows, that you have to play around with it. But yes, someone who is really good at doing this um, is what I would say, uh, the right producer in my head.
Yeah. For people that maybe want to be producers, or maybe people that currently are acting as producers, like
Mhm.
what are some things that you've seen them do, or strive to learn or to focus on to continue to get better and improve towards that senior level producer role?
I think when it comes to meeting timelines, one of the most difficult things to do is uh, come up with estimations, especially from developers. Somehow, my observation obviously is that any task, once the first thing a developer reads a task, he's going to go, "Oh, I can do this in 2 days." And I'm like, "It's going to take a week for this," And the producer knowing this, that the the particular team member being so enthusiastic about his work is and the number, and as you basically progress in your career, you sort of get better at your estimations. And I think getting the absolute right estimations is something that all producers probably struggle with. um, and I think the second most important thing for a producer, I would say, is uh, get your hands dirty in all the parts or functions involved in developing a game. Like if you get a chance, sit down and program something, even if it's just like an arcade shooter or something. Get an idea of what programming is. Do some artwork. If you even if it's bad, it doesn't look good, it's fine. Just do it so that stuff that uh, goes on in that space as well. And this especially helps when you're working in startups, or an environment where you have uh, or you are trying to hire a team that is uh, not too heavy on your pocket. You know, so you kind of compromise on the experience levels there. And then if you have the knowledge that certain things can be done in maybe say Maya or 3D Max or something, you can always guide these team members of yours if required.
It's really good. Yeah, I like that. I think one of the best things that I ever did was learning to code, because now I at least have, a rough concept of, yeah, that will probably take 5 minutes. That will probably take 4 weeks.
Yeah,
You can get a rough
exactly.
estimation. Um, and you also will learn that, okay, well, this dev says that will take 2 days, but we probably should add the additional 2 days in to possibly account for like the 2 days that they're going to be working on the errors that they're going to encounter before they can even start, doing that coding
Yep.
or whatever.
Yep.
The random things that just happen, right? Um, that's great. Do you think that along with that like timeline thing, that it's important to try to learn your team members too? Like, a more experienced programmer might be better at predicting how long it'll take than someone that's, say, maybe more junior or whatnot.
Absolutely, yes. And what you just said makes a lot of sense, because you should also know your team always, and you should be able to make sure that you minimize the friction within your team members. You minimize the friction between different functions of a team. Like if there is a deadline, artwork is required for the developer to go on and do something. The pipelines are not working, your IT support is off, all of those things. So knowing exactly who's good at what, and how to keep everything running ever so smoothly. Uh, Being a people person is of absolute importance there as well. Yes.
That's great. How often, as a producer, do you think you should be talking to people? Like, should I be checking in on a developer every day, every week? My artist, is it kind of vary from person to person, or because there's always a balance of like when you come in and check off, you might throw off their flow. So have you found that there's a right balance?
I think the answer to this question depends on the person you're checking in on. Generally, you have your stand-ups every day, which gives you a general overview of where the project is going. Or you have your project management tools, which are sort of telling you stuff about allowing you to measure the progress on your project. So that's good enough, I feel, on the completion status level. But on a more personal level, or on a more uh, one-on-one level, I would say it's about uh, the vibe with that person. Like it's probably I might be a developer who likes to talk every day. So yeah, why not? Maybe come and ask me a few questions every day, and I'll give you an update. Whereas I've seen a lot of artists be like, uh, those who want to be left alone when they are in the zone, and you don't want to be uh, talking to a lot. So with them, you want to just take it easy wherever you can. So I think the answer to that question is there is no real thumb rule there, but it's more about getting to know that person and understanding what he is comfortable with, and then trying to find a balance with what is required for the ultimate goals of the project, and then sort of work it out.
Yeah. Um, Just reflecting on what happens if you you set these timelines, and even when you add conservative estimates, sometimes things take longer, or more often than not, as I'm like getting into a project, like you uncover that there are other projects inside the project that are sometimes even bigger than the thing that you thought you were doing in the first place, right? How do you mitigate when someone is behind timeline and they're gonna like miss that? Like, have you ever run into that scenario?
I think almost every time.
what's your process for approaching that? Yeah, how do you help with that?
So ideally, I believe that if something is not coming across, you need to sort of gauge the importance of having that in the next update. Or like if you're assuming that this is a live ops thing or something, then if it is not very critical, or it is not very absolutely required, you might want to keep that feature for a later time or something, and just roll out whatever you have is ready, uh, or just give that person the same amount of time. Maybe see if somebody else on the team can help him or her, or that particular team speed up a bit if that is absolutely important. But at the end of the day, if the project requires it absolutely and it's going to take more time, you just have to give that time. I mean, I don't see a miracle happening there, really.
Yeah, so it's a matter of
But
kind of
ideally,
building.
yeah, but ideally, I like to, or I would recommend keeping your updates really short ones, so that you can also measure uh, the metrics around it much clearer. Because if you add too many things in a given update, you never know what really caused the drop in the retention, or what really caused the increase in the monetization.
Yeah.
You want to be able to roll out smaller updates, check stuff again, always have a benchmark rollout as well, so to sort of match your metrics again against.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When you come to like rolling stuff out, do you generally find that you just roll it out to everyone, or do you ever try to have like A/B testing in place and hold back groups and such?
I think there have been times when I've rolled out to everyone, and it has been a mess, especially not just because of what the feature is, but also technical issues that you might face inside the game. So just an interesting thing that I would like to share is one of our games that we released was a Ludo game. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the primary source for its users was actually organic. Uh, we didn't do much user acquisition over it. So what it requires is that a lot of people are naturally um, coming in, to your game. And this usually happens when your game is in some ways promoted by the app stores in certain spaces. Um, there's a category called Explore in Google Play, which is your game showing up next to some other game that someone was browsing. It says you might also like, or showing up in your search bar somewhere. Now, what we observed is that this visibility usually improves when your app is showing the ANRs and the crash rate, which is much lesser than your peers. Uh, so you can set up peer groups in your Google Play dashboard now. So for example, if I had the Ludo game, then I would have all the other Ludo games
Yep.
set up as my peers, and I can sort of see where do I stand compared to them in terms of my crash rate, my NR rate, my sleep time, wake time, all of that stuff. And
Yep.
if you're really good in that, what you realize is Google naturally promotes the game, or your organics naturally are higher. So this one
Mm.
update that we thought had some really cool stuff in terms of features, and we had missed the deadlines, and we were in a rush. So we sort of ended up rolling it out really fast, and we sort of thankfully rolled it out to just 99%, because I always keep that 1% chance for a rollback.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, and what I realized is it takes a couple of days for the data to come in from Google. Like it takes 2 or 3 days for your crash rates and ARR rates to start showing up on the dashboard.
Yep.
Uh, they were really bad for this particular update, and our organics were down by like we were getting almost like 15,000 users lesser than we would daily. Like if
Oof.
we were getting all
Wow.
and that was huge. And my AOSO team was came rushing to me, and they're like, we need to fix this. We need to roll this back. We need to do something. Otherwise, we are losing users really, really fast. And if it gets bad, it takes a very, very long time for you to regain that trust, regain that
Yeah.
confidence with Google, and get back up there. So this hit that we took, we ended up taking almost 4 months after that to getting back to where we were, and even growing beyond that. So
Wow.
my recommendation: roll out 10%, roll out 20%, check how it's going. Um, and this is something which is not really feature specific, but more so your app stability specific. You know, and yes, so ever since then, it's always been rolling out. And if it is features, I would always recommend that you keep whatever is your live version rolled out to, let's say, 50% or maybe 40% of the users. And then if you have 2 or 3 other variants that are coming up, you might want to figure out, okay, one variant A is going out to maybe 10%, variant B is going out to another 10%, so on and so forth. And then use the 50% rollout, which is in your current build, as a benchmark to measure the performance of the other builds compared to that, and then figure out, okay, what's happening. Because uh, what happens is generally your UA strategies may be changing, your acquisition strategies may be changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you roll out all the new builds and you do not keep a benchmark of your current build, and you suddenly change or maybe change your user acquisition strategy from going, let's say you were acquiring users from India, and suddenly you have now started acquiring users from somewhere else.
Yep.
The user behavior is going to be different. Trust me, it's not
Yeah.
going to be the same. And if you are sort of comparing that with users from India who are on the older version, and you don't have a
Behaving
benchmark
differently.
of
Yeah.
behaving differently, then you are going to act on incorrect data. So my recommendation: no matter what happens, whenever you're rolling out an update or making changes to your game, make sure that your current build is always live in that particular region, wherever you're acquiring your users from, and you're always benchmarking the changes against the same region, same build. Very important, so that your data is not skewed.
Yeah. That's actually really valuable advice. I think that's fantastic. Um, with this like user acquisition rollout and stuff, are there good tools that you can, or I guess does Google, it's been a while since I've actually had an app on the App Store, but like, does Google allow you to just roll out the app to a certain population? I know what I've seen some game studios that I work with do is they'll have servers. And so like server one, all the players on server one, which is maybe 10% of the overall population or 5%, will always get the new stuff. Um, and they know that it breaks more often, but they kind of like it because they get the new stuff before the other servers do and stuff like that. But they just know that they're going to be the ones that kind of get that experimental stuff. And so it's a way that they can kind of roll it out, but their players talk a lot and they're in guilds and whatnot. And so, if some of them got the new stuff and the other ones didn't, they'd be upset. But because it's within the one server, they can kind of maintain that. Do you find that rollout is something you have to do like on your side, or are there some external tools that allow you to roll it out?
So personally, I've always worked on tools that were developed by our own company. Like YOOZOO had a lot of tools that help you do this stuff.
Yep.
Honestly, I have not explored the market out there really in terms of what tools can be used for this. Google, as far as I'm aware, does not allow you to decide a specific population in terms of region
Yeah.
or stuff. Maybe your internal test or your public test, open beta test, you can have a region specific launch. But the actual production build, I think you can just define the percent rollout. You can't really decide which particular region as such.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Thinking still within the realm of how to iterate on things and do it well. A approach that I've heard some people do is, hey, I've been working on this really cool new feature, but instead of rolling that feature out just completely to everyone, we're going to enable it as a live ops event for like a week. And then it goes away. We can look at the data, if it actually improved metrics, maybe we do fully roll it out. Maybe we kill that. Maybe we need to make some changes based on the data before we roll it out as like a real feature. Have you ever employed a strategy like that?
Yes, actually, we did. It was again for the same game, Ludo. We were coming up with this update where we were basically focusing on monetization, and it was all about the vanity stuff. Um, and what we wanted to do was we wanted to sort of come up uh, with your dice and your tokens and your maps which are customized and have like a theme around it, like a desert theme or a Christmas theme or a Diwali theme. Now, what we wanted to test was whether we want to sort of have it like a one-time purchase, like it's out there in the store. You can just come in, buy it, buy whichever you want, and be done with it. Then we wanted to test whether it's good to time it. For example, things like these, when they're exclusively available only for a certain period of time, you kind of create that rush in your users that, hey, FOMO, I want to miss out on buying this. I don't want to miss out on getting this. So,
Yeah.
so we wanted to see if that helps us boost our revenues, or whether we sort of do a gacha system around it. Do we go loot boxes? Do we have unique loot boxes? And then again, do we want to have these loot boxes throughout, or do we want to launch them only as events and
Yep.
get it out? So yes, we did this. We tried to solve the like I had my designers discussing this. Um, each one coming up with, no, I think our game requires this to be there all the time. Someone saying, no, it has to be a gacha. Otherwise saying that, no, the exclusivity is helping us push revenues. So I was like, guys, just go out and test it. And yes, we sort of launched it to a certain population first, which was just like, it was just there, and you can buy it. store and whichever you wanted. Like there was no gacha, like 5 items out there. You like one, buy one. You like all five, go and buy all five. Or then we had a gacha, and we had like common, epic, rare, and we wanted to see whether people are buying those gift boxes again and again. And what we realized that gacha was obviously working better for us, and it worked even better when it was timed, especially. For example, when Christmas was coming, and we came up with a Christmas themed dice and a board and everything, and that would become like the epic thing to collect, and then we would have many other things going around it. So what we saw that because it was timed, um, our peers would want to like keep buying those loot boxes before they run out of time.
Yeah. Wow.
So yes, it definitely helps. And a lot of your questions, I believe, should be answered by your players and not by yourself or your team.
Yeah. Are there any downsides to doing this, or does this really just come back to the time, quality, and budget kind of a thing, where if you don't have a lot of time, you don't have time to do the slow iterative rollout kind of a thing?
It does come back to that, but my counter to that would be, what else would you be doing, right? Unless, like for example, if you have a game that is working well for you or you're playing live ops, then take your time, improve the game as in how you can do it, because that's what's working for you. Where else would you spend that time wisely? Is the question. If you have a better thing lined up, then yeah, probably spend it there. But if you don't really, then why not invest it here?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I only have one more question because we're already like out of time. I feel like we could have gone for a couple more hours, but I'll be respectful of your time.
Sure.
So because we are on the Master Retention podcast, I always like to ask, what's one tip or trick or lesson you've kind of learned over the years to keep your players playing for longer? Like, how do you keep them coming back day after day, week after week?
Okay, so I think it's very important to realize that different features and mechanics promote different tension and engagement days. For example, certain mechanics will only promote your retention for day one, probably day up to day three, but it's not going to help you beyond that. And then there are certain mechanics and meta inside a game that can help you probably have people retained until like day seven, but day 14, that's not really going to help you. And probably some that are going to go on and help you retain players for day 30 or maybe even longer. When I'm talking day 30, when I'm talking, then I'm thinking right off the bat of my, I'm thinking leagues, I'm thinking guilds, I'm thinking clans, just socializing where people sort of make friends and stick around for a longer period of time. When I'm talking day one, I am thinking the best gameplay experience. Period. Like it's not the loot boxes that you're gonna get. It's not the stuff around it that's gonna keep the person coming back on day one or day zero for that matter. It's your game that's gonna do it. Does your user like what you've built or what play you've built for that player? A lot of times it also depends on where you're acquiring these users from. For example, if I'm making a word game, no point in acquiring users that like playing Game of War or Clash of Clans. You want to bring the right audience in. You want to show them the right creatives while you're bringing the audience in, and then measure the metric or your gameplay against it. When you're talking day two, day three, I'm talking the loot boxes are probably coming in, or unlocking is coming in. You're unlocking something new. You're progressing in a story, or you're doing something like content is coming. That is keeping you going. Now, obviously, it will be different from game to game based on what genre and what kind of game you're making. Probably, if you're making an RPG, then or an MMORPG, then it's all about uncovering new places, uncovering new equipment, facing new bosses, different,
Yeah.
that keeps happening. Then the player's gonna be interested. Or if you're talking games like let's say Golf Clash or something like that, then you're talking about unlocking different golf courses, unlocking different golf bats, unlocking different balls, and tournaments and stuff like that. So that keeps you going. Uh, but I feel that one of the most or very lessly talked about thing that really helps in your retention is the UI and the UX. If your players don't understand how to go about playing a game, or how to go about navigate themselves in the game, or like the polish and feel of the game as soon as they see it, they're probably going to be gone, even if they actually like your gameplay, or probably never stick around long enough to figure out your gameplay. Uh, that's
Yeah.
just something that's just something I saw in Ludo actually. We had three different versions of UI that we sort of revamped before we went out of the soft launch and into the full launch. And the last update, I saw about 6% rise in D1 retention, just because uh, the UX was pretty much the same. We just changed the way it looked and the colors and the theme, and that just helped us 6% increase overall. So it was mind-boggling to me as well. But hey, works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think one other important thing is your user acquisition, your marketing team, or your
Mm.
publishing team. You know, uh, sometimes when you're making a game that is very unique, probably first of its kind, there's nothing like that out there. Uh, Maybe you want to show your gameplay in your creatives. That just helps the user um, learn about your game before he is in the game. It's like your FTV even before your FTV began.
Mm. Yeah. No, I always say that too. It's like, and I know we're like desperately out of time here, but um,
No worries.
when a player comes in and they just churn right away, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, it's not like they just churned. Like they had to see that ad, decide that it was so interesting that they wanted to click into the game. And then they were so interested by the ASO and the screenshots, and it looked like it was going to download the game and they actually get into it. Like you must have truly failed at like delivering the experience that they thought they were getting, right? Like they had to go through all these hoops and steps to get to where they are. It's not like, they just churned out. It's like, no, we failed them in some way. But
Yep.
this is great. I love this. Well, Kunal, if folks want to get in contact with you about anything, is there a good way for them to do that?
My email ID, I guess.
Cool.
That's fine. Kunal Mordekar at gmail.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, it was a pleasure being on your podcast. It was great talking to you, Tom, and I hope informative as well to our
Definitely.
listeners.
All right. Have a
Great.
good one.
All right. You too. Bye bye.